warriors, welcome to another episode of Chevrons, a podcast for the enlisted force by the enlisted force. I'm Tim Sandlin from the 102nd Intelligence Wing Public Affairs Office, and together with my guests, we're going to discuss the topic of this episode, mentorship. I'm joined by Chief Master Sgt. Dan Ahaesy, Senior Enlisted Leader for the 102nd Mission Support Group, and Senior Master Sergeant Maria Escobar, Plans and Programs NCOIC from the 102nd Force Support Squadron. Both are heavily involved with the Enlisted Development Council here at Otis Air National Guard Base and are here to talk about mentorship, what it's all about, why it's important, and their advice on how to be a good mentor, mentee, and how to best seek out those who can help you find your way through life, your career, and everything in between. Chief, first, can I get a little bit about yourself? What's your military story?
So my military story started back in 1987. I was a sophomore in college, and that wasn't working out for me at the time because of my life circumstances, and I really needed a change. Most of my friends had joined the military, so believe it or not, initially I tried to join the Navy, and I'm glad I didn't. I ended up in the Army National Guard. I was a military police for the 772 MP Company. And got the opportunity to deploy for Desert Storm, Desert Shield. And a few years later, I met my wife, who was in public affairs back in Otis back in the day, and she had convinced me to come on over. So I went to the Civil Engineering Squadron, and as a fuels and, it was called utilities back then. So basically I was an Air Force plumber. And from there I became a training NCO, then I became a UTM, first sergeant, and which led me to my position now as the chief of the Mission Support Group. And that's kind of my military story.
Excellent. Sergeant Escobar, same question. What's your military path? How did you get here?
So my military path, I joined the 102nd Intelligence, the Fighter Wing at the time, the 102 Fighter Wing here at Otis in 2004. I had my 3 children already. My husband at the time was actually active duty Air Force. He had gotten out, and I always wanted to join the military. And as a Colombian native, as an immigrant, I always wanted to give back to this country. And therefore, my passion was always the military, and I wanted to join. So when the opportunity came, I came on knocking on that door, and I joined the Fighter Wing. I joined right into Force Support Flight at the time, and I was there in personnel for about 6 years, maybe 5, a little bit over 5 years or so. And then I never deployed. I haven't been actually fortunate to deploy, but I was very fortunate to take on an actual special duty, which was becoming a military training instructor. I know we're going to talk about mentorship, and let's talk about how the influence of other members can really help you make certain decisions. And my commander at the time, she was a major at the time. So it was very impactful for me to see a woman be a commander. So that impacted me a lot when I first came in. And then my second impact was my military training instructor, who was a female. So I came back to, after I graduated, and when the military training instructor opportunity came about, I applied. And then once I was done with that duty, which, by the way, was one of my most rewarding duties I have ever done in my career, I came back and here to the wing as the Assistant Director of Inspections in the IG office. And from there, I moved over to base training, and now I'm with Plans and Programs over at Force Support Squadron.
That's great.
That is my military
That's
story.
Great. Some very diverse careers going on here. So the first question I've got for both of you, whoever wants to go first, feel free to jump in. What does mentorship mean to you, and why do you think it's important?
So mentorship it was very important in my career. Although early in my career, there really wasn't a name for it, like we have now. I growing up in the military, when you first join the military, it is culture shock, right? You think about, you're leaving home. My first airplane ride ever is going to basic training. So, and then being thrown into that culture shock. And you're always, you don't know what's going on, so you're always looking for a guidance somehow of somebody who's been there and done that. And that's kind of led me up until even to today. Yes, I'm a E9. I've been in the military for 37 years now, and I am always looking for mentorship, right? Because the older you get, the more you realize you don't have all the answers, but they're out there. And so I always felt that it was important. And I think about the people that mentored me, who invested in me, not just somebody who came by and gave me some advice. I mean, people that were really invested in my military career and was always looking out for the best for me. And if it wasn't for them, and there's two, I had mentors too that I didn't like too. And you can learn something from somebody. Somebody could be mentoring you, not even know it, by showing me how not to do something, right? How not to treat people. I will never treat anybody that way. I learned something. It was valuable, and looking for that. But those people in my military career who really, really helped me understand and mature, to get to really know people, to get to understand what makes people tick. They talk about, one of the highest skills as a mentor or as a supervisor or anybody in a leadership position is the understanding individuals who need the carrot or who need the stick. And that's probably one of the most important things that I learned, that not everybody is the same. And I learned that not only through experience, but I learned that through mentorship. So that's why I think it's really important to have that guidance, to have to have somebody tell you about their experience, and really being focused in on understanding that.
Right. So, Escobar, what's mentorship mean to you, and why is it important?
So mentorship to me, what it means to me is really having that opportunity to connect, right? Make that connection with someone, communicating with them, your needs, wants, your goals, what you want to pursue, right? That's pretty much like sometimes what we look for. If there's a mentor or you're a mentee and you're trying to look for someone, for something. But for me, is that connection, that actual emotional connection, in the sense of like you can actually become a little bit vulnerable, right? Because either you're getting the good feedback, or sometimes you're getting that feedback which, if you're not doing something right, you want to hear the truth. You don't want necessarily something to... Well, for myself, when I'm looking for a mentor, I'm looking for someone who is going to always tell me the truth and provide me the guidance and basically help me out, right? So mentorship for me is, again, making that connection, building that trust, and getting that help that you need, because that guidance, because that's, to me, that's what a lot of the times we're looking for on a mentor, is that keeping it real, right? That truth, that guidance, and that connection.
Great. Chief, what do you think it takes to be a good mentor?
Well, a good mentor has to generally be interested in their airmen and their careers, right? The definition of love is seeking the greatest for those that are not yourself, right? And it sounds weird to say it, but you have to love your airmen, right? Unconditionally, and so that means the shining star. And airman duffel bag, right? Those,
sure.
You have to love them. You have to, we're given, the Air Force doesn't give us perfect tools, right? Perfectly shiny, sharp tools, right? They give us a toolbox, and, it's our job, if you have a rusty chisel, that you polish it and that you sharpen it. And you have to be that type of person who wants to do that, right? Because many people just want to take that tool and, throw it in the trash. And it's through mentoring experiences that we do that, right? To be a good mentor, you have to have that love in your heart, right? You have to have that desire to seek the greatest good for others.
Sergeant Escobar, what's it take to be a good mentor?
To be a good mentor, I mean, pretty much the chief covered many of those areas there. Having the time, taking the time, having the passion, having the compassion, knowledge, right? It's another thing, because depending on what it is, you don't have to be a know-it-all either, right? But knowing how to find the information if you don't have an answer to something is always a good way as well to mentor someone, right? Because again, you're building that trust, right? So being a trustworthy individual is also a good mentor. And again, providing the tools if you don't necessarily have all the answers, but building that bond and following through, right? I think it's important, because sometimes a mentee may not necessarily have everything ahead of time, or may not even know where to begin or where to start something. So kind of helping them along the way and providing that roadmap. So again, taking the time, listening, having that connection, that compassion. I think it's what it takes to be a good mentor.
Establishing trust too.
That's huge. That is one
They're
of my
not going to
biggest
follow your
thing.
roadmap if they think
That's right.
you're going to get them lost.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
They have to know that you have their best interest
Yes,
in mind.
absolutely. That follow through, right?
Right.
If you're going to start something with someone and you're helping them along the way, and maybe they're not coming back because they're busy or whatever the case may be, kind of that little reminder, hey, remember we started this? Are you still, how are you doing with your goal? How are you, what's your progress? Kind of following up as well I think it's huge to maintain that connection and that trust.
I, having been around quite a while myself, I remember back in the day in the 80s, there was a mentality of a supervisor, hey, kid, don't waste my time. If you don't want this, don't waste my time. But now I would say it's kind of flipped, where the more junior folks are like, hey, supervisor, mentor, don't waste my time. If you don't want me here, or if you don't want to teach me something, I'll go somewhere else. So it's critical to keep that communication and that trust building.
Absolutely.
So that leads me into the next question. What makes a good mentee?
I'm going to let Maria answer this one first, because it's not fair that I get the good answers.
So what it takes to be a good mentee, first of all, I think is really kind of, for myself, for example, is internally kind of assessing yourself and trying to figure out what is it that you want, or maybe what is it that you need, or what do you not really know or understand. Whether it's your goals, you have a goal in mind but don't really know how to get there or how to achieve it or accomplish it, right? So writing it down, putting it on paper, maybe in writing so you can actually see it. So basically preparing yourself. That's how, a good mentee is, like preparing yourself, because once you prepare yourself and you kind of have a little bit of the beginning of that roadmap, now you can go to your next step, is to like, okay, who can maybe help me? Now you'll be able to search for someone to assist you. Or maybe you put down your goal and you're trying to do this on your own, and somebody maybe will observe you doing something, and now they themselves are going to come over and offer the help and that mentorship. So a good mentee to me is someone that prepares themselves at first, kind of like formulates or assess themselves to figure things out, and kind of either search that help or let themselves be helped.
For me, to be a good mentee is you have to be open-minded, right? Somebody, again, kind of like what Sergeant Escobar alluded to, they have to be willing and thirst some of that knowledge. So, opposed to the airman who knows everything, right?
Sure.
hey, listen, I want to let you know that this is probably the best way to do it. And they're like, yeah, I know. That's not a good mentee. It's got to be somebody who's willing to understand that experiences and knowledge is very valuable, and that willingness to learn from that, and to be observant, right? Because sometimes we're mentoring, we don't even know it just by our actions, right? And in how we treat people, and having that emotional intelligence, and having all those other things that we talk about so much now that we deem to be important, and understanding that we're always in constant view, especially when you get up there in rank, and know that there's always somebody watching, but to be that type of person that's always watching, right?
Sure.
And willing to learn.
I'd also add, as a mentee, you have to understand that your mentor isn't going to fix you. You need to fix you, or I shouldn't even say fix. Yeah. You need to do the work. It's not their job to make those changes within yourself. You have to be able to, you have to understand it's hard work. It's hard work to add to your tool chest. It's hard work to learn and remember important lessons. And then the other part of it is you have to get yourself to a place where you will accept constructive criticism, because a mentor may come down on you and say, hey, listen, you did that wrong, but I've got a solution for you. But if you stop listening at the word wrong, right, you're not going to get anything out of the next few words. So...
Absolutely. Yeah. You brought a good point, and that's why earlier when I had mentioned, that whole, obviously about being open-minded, right? But earlier I had mentioned about a mentor. For me, like an important aspect of a good mentor is somebody that's going to be honest with you, provide you honest feedback, right, whether it's good or bad, right? And it could be like I'm doing something completely wrong, where there I am thinking, oh my God, I'm perfect, or everything's perfect, and we know we're not, right? So that's huge. That's absolutely one of those things, being humble and really taking in that feedback and making those corrections, because that's why that mentor is that maybe a subject matter expert, or they have the knowledge, or they've had the experience and had already fallen before. Now they're trying to ensure you don't fall.
Right. And to be a good mentee is you have to be someone who's willing to read the directions. So, for example, when my girls were younger, they had the Barbie dream house, right? And initially, I didn't want to read the directions. I could figure it out myself and put it together. And then there you are. I have all these pieces, and this thing's not staying together, right? Because I wasn't willing to go step by step through the instructions. And to be a good mentee, you got to be somebody who's willing to read the instructions and not try to figure out everything for yourself.
Right. You got to do the work.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, speaking of the Barbie dream house, in your past, who have some of your mentors been? Not necessarily military, but people who left an impact in your lives.
Well, I've had a lot of great mentors. And I know this sounds corny, but I see the question here is who inspires you. And one of the people in my life that inspires me is my wife, just because of her military career and, where she came from and where she is today. So hope she's listening to this. But throughout my life, the mentor in my life, the one person always comes to my mind is Senior Master Sgt. Robert Sully, another Sully. He was my shop supervisor, and really he was a no-nonsense guy from South Boston, right? And I don't know if you remember Bob Sullivan, Sully. You either loved him or you hated him, right? Because he was rough as anything, but with that rough, he had that soft interior too. And so I think one of the real things that made me look at him as a mentor is I can remember, so I'm a retired police officer from Fall River, right after, on the same day of the birth of my daughter Julia, we lost a police officer. So it was a lot. There was a lot that was going on. In being a DSG, kind of, my experience up until him as my supervisor was he only talked to your supervisor on the weekend. And he would call me during the week and say, hey, I know you're going through all this stuff. You just had a baby. You just lost a friend. How you doing? How's it going? And that really helped me just hyper-focus on him in his experiences, because I'm saying this is the perfect supervisor for me, and he had so much to offer. And to this day, there's in a month that goes by that I get a phone call, and he's been retired since 2010, that he's like, hey, how's it going? Like, what's going on? So he's always keeping in touch. So he's been always inspired me, and to this day, he's still there for advice, and which I value so much.
That's great. A lesson, everybody out there, go find yourself a Sully.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, constant. Somebody that's there for you, always.
Sergeant Escobar.
Who inspires me and who's been mentored throughout my life? My mom. She really has been a huge inspiration to me. It's always been her and I. I'm an only child. I lost my father when I was 2, so she has always been my constant. She's always been like a hardworking individual and a very strong woman, even though she didn't have like a lot of education. She only went, I think, up to like the 3rd grade, but it's incredible how smart she is, especially with money. And that's the one piece that I haven't been able to really learn because I'm horrible with my money, my finances. Some of it, just kidding. But she has really inspired me. And because of the person that she is, I think I was able to learn from her that you cannot accomplish things on your own either. And therefore, from her, I learned that if I wanted to achieve things in life or work towards something, that I needed to kind of seek out other people that could help me, right? Being an only child is also a little bit difficult because you don't really have those connections. So therefore, you tend to seek out more connections from others because you're building those relationships since you don't really have like a brother or sister or anybody else really to rely on. And it was just me and my mom here in this country. All my family lives in Colombia, so I have just an uncle that's here. So therefore, I really did have to rely on a lot of people. So therefore, I've been very lucky that I've had many mentors throughout my life, from my elementary, high school years, especially in high school. I was in the JROTC program, and I had a first sergeant, and he was my first mentor per se, because he really helped me out, kind of like figure things out, and kind of, where I wanted to go in life. Then before I joined the military, I was the general manager at a store in Boston, Fenigla Bagel, it's a cafe, and I had an amazing mentor. She was a manager, and she really helped me throughout my career there. And then finally, when I came into the military, again, I always seeked out for help. I never felt like I could just do things on my own. And the military was brand new to me. And having 3 children, family, it can be very difficult. And I would say like the first person that actually they themselves came to me and introduced themselves, because at that time I was the vice president. It used to be called the Airmen's Council. And the tech sergeant that was the president got promoted, so therefore he couldn't be the president anymore. So then I had to take over that position. So being a brand new airman, because I was an A1C at the time, I had no idea how to run a council, where to even begin. So he's now a lieutenant colonel, but back in the day he was Chief Haddon. And he was my mentor. He helped me out so much. And from that time and that connection and that trust that we built is who became my mentor throughout. Even when I was down in Texas as a military training instructor, it was in Unicorn and Rainbows when I first got there. Mm-hmm. It was a very, very difficult duty. So it was a culture shock. It was very long hours. And he was the one person that reached out to me as well to see how I was doing and how everything was going. So I kept that connection with him. So Lieutenant Colonel Haddon, he has been a great mentor to me.
That's awesome. What advice do you guys have for airmen seeking mentorship?
I'll let you answer this one first.
All right. So the advice that I have for airmen seeking mentorship, and I think we kind of talked about it a little bit, is one, being open-minded, right?
Sure.
That's one of those things. Kind of assessing yourself and see exactly what it is that you want. Maybe asking if you're not sure who's a mentor out there, or if you haven't really kind of seen anyone yet or been that observant, ask, right? Ask other people around you, maybe other peers, like, hey, I've noticed that you've been doing X, Y, and Z. How did you get there? Or who's your mentor? Just really kind of getting yourself out there and letting it known that you're interested in in mentorship and seeking that mentor. And if you don't necessarily want to connect with someone here at the wing, let's say, your goal is so completely different that you haven't really seen anybody, there's also my Vector that you can also go into and seek out a mentor there. Or maybe also you've been TDY somewhere, you've made a connection with someone, and I tell people this, and I tell my children this all the time as well. When somebody says, here's my number or here's my email, contact me if you ever need anything, people who say that is because they mean it.
Yeah.
So therefore, take advantage of that opportunity. And who knows, that may actually be your mentor.
Great advice.
Yeah. So for me, in seeking a mentor, you want to find somebody. It all depends, right? So if you're looking for a mentor, a career mentor, or you're looking for a life mentor, right? Either way, you want to seek those qualities in somebody those attributes in somebody that you really want to have in yourself, right? So somebody that you respect, somebody who has that presence anything that you want to emulate in that person, their presence, the way they speak, things that they're interested in. So look for those attributes. But the other thing is too that, especially like I'm reading the DEOC surveys and stuff, and some of the complaints I hear about supervisors, right? And generally people, airmen think that their supervisor has to be their mentor, which is not true. No. If you have a supervisor that you don't respect or seek any of those attributes that they possess, then find somebody close, in your career field, if it's a career move that you do. It doesn't have to be your supervisor. So seek out that person that you really appreciate, who you want to emulate, and then develop a conversation, have a conversation with them and develop a relationship with them, and let them be a mentor.
I would argue that it doesn't even go beyond supervisors. It doesn't have to be somebody that outranks you, or it could be a peer. It could be someone who's younger than you.
Absolutely.
If they do something that you want to know how to do, reach out. One of the big ones that I see on a regular basis, or I've seen throughout my career, is there are a lot of folks out there, supervisors. There are a lot of supervisors out there that don't know how to write decorations. They're not good at it. Or EPRs and things like that. Well, find somebody who can write the heck out of a decoration and say, hey, how do you do that? How does it come so easy to you? And start a conversation. And before you know it, you'll be writing decorations just as good.
Yeah. You just have to, choosing a mentor or seeking a mentor is not pulling a name out of a hat, right? It's, when you're looking for a car, you don't just go and pick the first car that you see. You have to investigate. You really have to, see where that person comes from, where their heart is, and then that's the person that you want to pick.
Yeah, and I also, to add to that, I think that it's okay if you reach out to someone and you kind of like assess yourself, and then you've kind of reached out to someone because you feel like, oh, they may be a good fit. But it's okay if, during your, when you're working together and they're not a fit for you, it's okay to kindly say like, hey, I really appreciate your time with this, but I'm actually looking for this, and I don't think that we're going to be able to work towards my goal with the ideas that you have presented. Depending, right? Assessing the whole situation. So it's okay to change your mentor. And sometimes our goals do change and different situations do change where you require to find someone different that's going to help you meet your goals or aspirations or whatever it is that you're working towards.
Great. So back in October, the wing held a speed mentoring event, and would you mind speaking a little bit about that?
So really, this dated back almost 2 years ago, when at the infancy of the Enlisted Force Development Committee, the all-call came out from General Brown, and so we as a wing formed a Tiger team, and really tried to understand what we were lacking as far as professional development went. One of those things were mentorship. And kind of realized that if you asked an airman, who's your mentor? They'll tell you about their grandfather or their aunt or somebody that really impacted their life as they were growing up. When I asked that question of an airman, I was kind of expecting an answer of, my supervisor or my commander or my peer. And that wasn't what we were getting. So we realized that we were kind of missing the mark as far as mentorship in the group, because we had mentoring moments, but we didn't have real true mentorship. So we wanted to try to get that message across and try to develop that culture throughout the wing. Sergeant Escobar, I had made a suggestion of maybe doing some type of an event, and I had seen some illustration on other units that did speed mentoring. Sergeant Escobar was like, "Yes, this is for me. I want to do this." So we kind of took it from there, Sergeant Escobar did a fantastic job. I was kind of felt like I was in the sidelines there, but she did a great job of getting people to actually get the message out of what mentors were or what people felt mentorship was. And we did the Public Affairs did a small illustration of that prior to us doing the event. We were a little, maybe I was a little bit more skeptical about how it was going to go. Sergeant Escobar was confident the whole time, and I believe it was a great event. So I'm going to let you take it from there and how you built the event and kind of like your mindset and how she kind of led us into to that day.
Yes, Chief. So first, thank you for the opportunity, because when you brought up the topic, I was like, oh my God, this is something I always wanted, because I know I've been very lucky that I've had mentors in my career. I've had the one that I always go to, but I've always had multiple people that I have always felt comfortable talking to, depending on my situation or where I was in my career or what exactly my goal was or what I wanted. So with that being said, I wanted to make sure that, wow, yes, we definitely need mentoring, but we have a talent, so many talented individuals at the wing, right? And some people are introverted, some are extroverted, and I really wanted us to share and provide the opportunity for those mentors out there at our own wing to be able to provide that mentorship, and then mentees or members that, didn't know how to ask or how the mentoring works, provide them that venue to be able to be out there and seek out a mentor, or maybe find out and figure out how this all works in the Air Force. Because as you mentioned, when we did the video, the first initial video that we showed during March Madness was about different mentors out there or mentees or what people thought a mentor was. And that really is how everything got initiated, because by the answers people were providing, I was able to see exactly what people were kind of looking for. So with the speed mentoring, I figured that would have been a great start, a starting point, because it's almost like speed dating. But yeah, you're speed mentoring. So you're going from table to table, you're talking to different mentors, they have different topics to talk about. And that's why I was confident, because I felt like it was a brand new concept maybe here at the wing, but once I started explaining to people, put the plan together, when we reached out to volunteers, now they felt a little bit more confident, like, oh, okay, so that's what this is all about. So I think that part, just getting the buy-in from the mentors, or there's always people out there that are always willing to help, especially if you're a mentor. You, regardless of what it is, you want to put yourself out there, you're going to be helping, because that's what a mentor is, right? You go outside the comfort zone and you're there to help others. So that's why I felt confident that it was going to work. Was it challenging? Absolutely, right?
my lack of confidence was to get participation from the airmen. And up until the day before, we weren't even going to be filling all the seats. And on the day of, we had to get more seats. So it was a great event as far as all the participation and all the eager airmen that we had that wanted to participate, and that just showed us that people were really wanted mentorship. They wanted to understand the process and get those, and understand those experiences that are more, as myself, mature airmen in the unit had to offer. So I think that was what was surprising to me. Because I had a vision, and it far surpassed the vision that I had. So I was very happy with that, and really got that ball rolling and changing our culture for having more to develop a one-on-one mentorship, because it's an investment. We talk about, I mentioned before that we have mentoring moments. Where you see an airman and say, hey, what's going on with you? And, oh, you should do this, and you should go to the NCO Academy, and this is my experience. And then that's it. You never talk to each other again, where mentorship is more of an investment in an airman, right? You can have more than one mentor, but they all have to be invested. And that's, that next step in our culture. So to get back to the actual event, why don't we talk about how you selected the mentors and the topics that we had.
Yes, absolutely. So the way that the selection of the mentors came about, it wasn't like we were pre-selecting anybody by any shape, form, or means. I really reached out to supervisors, other actual members from the wing, and asked them, hey, if you could have a mentor, or if somebody, who do you consider to be a mentor for you out there, or who would you think would be a good mentor? And maybe they just haven't themselves reached out to someone, but they already had somebody in mind that's always been out there. So that's how I went about it, was from either recommendation from supervisors, leadership, from other members from the wing, their peers, or even someone that is lower ranking than the person themselves. So that's how the selection process went. And the other thing too is I really wanted to ensure that we had like a diverse team of mentors, for example, from different ranks and different backgrounds when it came to AFSCs, careers. I mean, it was very diverse. And the way that we also went about it was by having also the mentors kind of like mentor each other in a sense. So we paired mentors. We actually paired someone of higher ranking with someone of a little bit of lower ranking as mentors, again, to provide that feedback, to have them work together so that they can both learn from one another. So that was also another hidden thing that I kind of did on purpose. And then, of course, that led to what I believe was actually a pretty successful event, was having those two mentors being paired with a subject that they actually had to talk about.
And they were certainly diverse in experience and rank. It was, you looked at the table and you would have a tech sergeant and a major. You had a colonel and a chief. So you always had the enlisted perspective, and you had the officer perspective too. So, which tends to change, and to understand both of those was great, I thought.
Yeah, so that's how we really kind of wanted, things to work out, and so far I got really good feedback as far as like with the mentors and how everything worked out with their topics and stuff like that. They had to do their own research because I wasn't going to provide them all the answers. I mean, that was the point of it as well, was to kind of get them working together.
And then what were some of the topics of each table?
So I don't have them all with me, but I remember one of them being leadership.
Right, followership.
Followership,
Yep.
yes, those were some critical ones. I'm trying to remember the
Having
other ones.
having difficult
Conversations, yes.
So it was really the stuff that would applied. Every topic was something that wasn't out in left field. It was all something that we had to dealt with every day, which I thought was really, really, really well done very well.
And then as far as like the mentees, how at first we were a little bit like nervous with whether people were going to show up or not, or they understood what the whole speed mentoring was about. It really does take a team. It does take a wing. It does take everyone to support a program and to explain to others so that they can actually participate or buy into it, right? In a sense. So I think that the biggest thing, and I thank all the supervisors and leaders out there that supported our event, because I know at the beginning it was like a little bit slower as far as having people sign up, maybe not really realizing, or we do have a mission and everyone really is very busy. So that was my biggest concern, is we all have, our time is very limited when we have our RSDs or drills. So I understand how challenging it could be to let somebody go to an event. So it really, I think like the biggest impact was supervisors really supporting the event. And whether it was at the last minute, they say, hey, I really feel like you need to go to this. This is going to be a great event. And then encouraging their members to actually attend the event. And I think that's how we actually ended up having the extra members that hadn't signed up, which, by the way, we accommodated, and it made it an even better event.
We had plenty of chairs.
Oh, yes.
And then we finished it up with having resources available there as well. Different organizations, veteran organizations, all the different committees there. To promote the enlisted force development. So it was a great touch.
So in conclusion, we're really just trying to ensure that our wing had visibility of what mentorship is about, and that our members versus mentors or mentees knew that, this is something that's out there. And hopefully our mentees were able to find some great mentors throughout our wing. And the other way, too. Some mentors were able to talk to some of our other members out there, and were able to connect and make those connections. That's what we really wanted. We wanted people to make those connections.
So there's a lot of great information on mentorship. And would either of you or both of you have any other words of advice or any other thoughts on the topic that you want to share before we close this up?
Well, what I would like to add is the little push on the Enlisted Force Development Committee.
Sure.
We've initially, it seemed like we had a lot of people that were interested, and it kind of died off. And a great deal has to do with kind of like the tempo of recent events that had happened. So I really like to, anybody that's listening to this podcast, if you're interested in changing the culture on how we develop our airmen, and have a passion for it, please seek either myself or Sergeant Escobar. I am going to remain on the committee. However, I'm a short timer, so I wanted some transition for the next chair to take over. But certainly, if you are somebody with a passion for developing your airmen and changing this culture, then please reach out to us.
Great.
Yeah, no, same. We're here for everyone, right? We got to develop our force, and being part of the professional development team. Again, if that's your passion, please, we need your assistance. We need your help. Let's brainstorm ideas. bring those ideas to the table, and let's build our professional development team.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Chief Ahaesy and Sergeant
Thank you.
Escobar. Thank you for joining
Thank
us
you.
today. And to the audience out there, please feel free to reach out to Chevrons at chevronspodcast@gmail.com with any suggestions you might have. And we'll see you next month.